Senator, earlier today, French President Emmanuel Macron addressing a joint session of Congress. What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, first of all, it was very typical of the kind of speeches we hear from allies, and did an excellent job of underscoring the long relationship that we've had with France, how we are bound by many common values, and in that regard, it was a good speech. He did drill down on a couple of things. Speech leaned a little further left than I would like, but when you're dealing with your European allies, you have to deal with that. But by and large, I think it was a good speech.
On the issue of Iran, particularly whether or not President Trump will ultimately decide to remain in or out of that deal ahead of that May 12th deadline, what do you think the president should do?
Well, first of all, let me say that whenever I'm dealing with the Europeans, you always have to underscore, they talk about our agreement. We don't have an agreement. Obama had an agreement. But the Founding Fathers wisely said, if you're going to have an agreement with the United States, it's got to be submitted to the United States Senate for a 2/3 vote, then you got an agreement. So we don't have an agreement other than President Obama has an executive agreement. So as far as us withdrawing or what have you, it just isn't there because there isn't an agreement with the United States. Now, having said that, I think that the agreement, but for not having permanency as to the fact that they never have nuclear weapons, and but for that the inspections aren't as strong as what I'd like to see, covers the nuclear issue. But this is like having a bad boy in the classroom who's doing 5 bad things. And they sat down with him and discussed one thing, and we strongly urged, those of us who wanted to see a better agreement, that the negotiators cover everything, not just the nuclear issue.
And I find this interesting because some of your Democratic colleagues also are very skeptical of the the GPOA as well. But on the issue, sticking with Iran, German Chancellor Angela Merkel coming on Friday, Theresa May, Prime Minister of the UK, also urging President Trump to remain in this, as is Germany, as is France. With so many European allies arguing to stay in this deal, is it difficult for the U.S. to withdraw?
Not really. Let me tell you what I've told every one of them when they've come to see me. I've said, look, the ball's in your court. If you want the United States to stay in it, we have said, the President has said, you need to resolve these other issues. You need to resolve the issue of missile testing. Mostly you need to resolve the issue of the financial support they give to terrorism. And also they need to resolve the issue of them sticking their nose and causing trouble in the Middle East. If they can do that, then we've got something to talk about.
Quick follow-up on the financial point, because if you look at exports from Iran, they've dramatically increased to Europe by more than 350%.
Right.
What needs to be done to better protect U.S. business interests from missing out on that market, but also to make sure that the Europeans aren't financing terrorism?
Well, I think, first of all, that market in the overall scheme of things is really big for the Europeans. It's not quite so big for us. And part of that is just geography of where they are. But look, when you're talking about national security, the economic issues here take a way back seat compared to our national security. And so I focus on the national security issues. I know there'll be people here in the United States that would like to tap into that market. I hope we get to that point. We'll see if we do.
On Syria, do you think that the Europeans, as well as President Trump and the U.S. administration, are on the same page?
Well, pretty much. It's hard to be on the same page with anybody in Syria because it's a Rubik's Cube of different interests there. There's 200 and some groups that are combinations of religious and ethnic backgrounds, some of which have fought with each other for forever. Sometimes they fight together, sometimes they oppose. So, and then on top of that, you have some of the most aggressive national participants in that, not the least of which is Iran and Hezbollah and obviously the Russians. These are all very difficult. To get on the same page is difficult, but it needs to be transactional. And we've done, I think, a pretty good job of transactionally handling the situation. On an overall basis, it is a very difficult situation.
Final question for you. I want to switch gears to North Korea and China, because particularly for your state, agriculture, a big portion for your state. The president has negotiated several different items with regards to China yesterday at his press conference, saying that he's playing the trade card for the back and forth with North Korea. Do you have any concerns about this administration's position on trade policy with China?
Well, look, we're always concerned about trade up here. All 50 states have trade issues. There's no question about it. I have personally on a number of occasions talked with the president about that. So have other people up here. We always get a good response from him. He really wants to make this work. We want to help him make this work.
So you don't think that he's settled into any particular agricultural trade policy?
I don't think that he is trying to throw agriculture under the bus or any other trade issues under the bus in exchange for something. He is very receptive when we talk to him about trade.